Hi, early US students. Just talking to you here. Mrs. Bergen should have gone through the search for your immigrants, and hopefully you found some relatives, whether it's your current last name or your mom's maiden name. And hopefully we found some different countries. I think Mrs. Bergen hopefully reiterated to you that the largest group in Iowa is going to be Germans and still is the most of the ancestry. And then you have Irish as well, which would be probably a distant second actually behind the Germans, which would be first. So what I'm going to do here is going to walk you through the notes. So last week, Mr. Dodgen covered immigration with you. Felt like you have the notes on that, so you should have notes on Irish and German. So if you have been gone, this should be in your notes. And give me a second here. This is going to be on. I have a paper copy here, but under letter D, immigrants in America. Most of you have electronic copy, but Irish and Germans, that should be filled out, as well as growth of the Midwest. With immigration, a large number of Germans coming to Iowa and that German triangular settlement that he talked about, even places like Illinois, Indiana, parts of Wisconsin included into Missouri and Iowa, like the Amana colonies was built by Germans. So understand that they have a great influence, and you can still find the German culture in those areas of the United States. So with that being said, I'm actually going to go back to the beginning of your notes with chapter 8. Again, you have a electronic copy. We're going to start up here at the north. We're going to go through the north, and then A and 1 and 2 there today on our notes. So I'm going to mirror my screen so that you can see that, and we'll go from there. So get on the right thing here. So as I walk through this, just kind of jot down notes that pertain to it. I'll tell you if there's something that you don't need necessarily. So here we go. For the North, the biggest event that's really happening is the Industrial Revolution, as we talked about in last chapter. And you should write down that the development of factories really made a growth in our society, specifically with a class system. And what we mean by that is it's going to be distinctly defined of having an upper class, a middle class, and a lower class in society. Now, today, it's broken down into many more units than that, but these three are the three basic ones that are going to be developing in the 1800s. So this rise of class system was really due to needing less people on farms. Now, I want you to realize that I don't want you to think that farms are going anywhere. They're going to be around. They're the main occupation for Americans. Actually, until 1920, more people live in rural America than they do in urban America until 1920. So that being said, though, we had 6% of Americans, I believe, in 1800 that lived in cities. But after the Industrial Revolution, by 1850, 13% of Americans live in cities. So we've doubled that number, more than doubled that number. And most of those people are in the North, actually, that have changed because they don't need as many people to work on farms due to our improvements in Industrial Revolution and the mechanics and machinery in which they're using. And then also just that the immigration of Irish and Germans increased the number of middle-class people as well. They're going to be working in your cities. Germans all as well. They come with some money, as Mr. Dodgen told you last week, and they're going to set up those farms in the Midwest and continue to flourish. They've got good ground. They're going to make good money. So top of the social class is the wealthy, pretty self-explanatory there, but these people are the manufacturers. These are the people that own those factories that are dishing out textiles, that are building cotton gins, that are developing steel now after we've invented or come up with a better process of making steel. We've got merchants. These are the people that are buying up goods from the manufacturers and selling them to us as customers. And then the bankers. The bankers are doing well because people have bought up land. They've invested in that. Bankers have invested in that, in people that are buying up land, and they're getting paid back because people in America are doing pretty well financially, and the bankers are getting their money back plus more. That's called interest. You would want to write this down as well. So a little characteristic about the wealthy is that a lot of them lived in large homes. They're going to have running water. Not to the extent of what we have running water today, obviously, but understand that they'd be able to go to the bathroom inside. You don't need a toilet. You don't need power to run a toilet. You just need water, and they have other amenities as well. What I mean by that is they have silverware that's actually made of silver that was manufactured and developed in France and Great Britain and shipped over here. They have furniture shipped over from Great Britain that is not homemade, whereas other classes are going to have to make their own stuff or maybe buy a little bit from local artisans. So that's kind of what the wealthy, they have a lot of money. They're big as far as having an influence in society, but they're not big in numbers. They're actually about 1% of the US population. This next one, it's not something that you specifically have to write down. I just wanted you to know that they'd actually have social events, the wealthy would. They would actually create a social event and decide if people could be part of their social events. So they'd actually vote. Current members would decide if new members would be allowed to come into their social gatherings. On the flip side of that, you have the poor, and the poor are going to be struggling to make ends meet. Most of the people understand that they don't choose this position in society. It's kind of thrown upon them. There's different reasons for that. As I put down here, injury to an individual can change your social status rather quickly. There is no insurance. And that's something to keep in mind in the 1800s, in this time period, the 1830s and 40s, that if somebody gets hurt or somebody gets killed, as it said, death of a loved one, or somebody dies of other causes, that's going to affect that family's status, especially if they're the ones that are going out and working and bringing in the money in society. So a lot of times the issues were out of their control. It's not something that they specifically desired to do, obviously. And because of that, they struggle to make ends meet. Then lastly, they live in crowded apartments. It's kind of a characteristic. I would write this down as well. They lived in these crowded apartments. You could have 2 or 3 families living in this. And that's not a recipe for success because disease is going to run rampant among the poor for multiple reasons, a lack of hygiene, as I've said, with crowded apartments, but also just being malnourished, not able to get the necessities of fruits and vegetables and different things that are fresh. They're not going to have a sewer system. There's a picture that comes to mind always when I talk about this, that water running down the streets and kids playing in that water. And there's a picture that I can show you here in this chapter. There's a dead horse and there's kids playing on the dead horse and next to the dead horse and playing in the water that runs under the dead horse. And that's obviously not sanitary, and it's going to cause people to get more diseases and spread more diseases. And then the last part about this is just being plagued with crime. People that didn't have money, people that don't have money, see nothing to lose. If they get caught robbing somebody or they get caught stealing, they get taken off to jail and they end up getting a meal. So these types of areas were oftentimes plagued with crime. The Irish were oftentimes part of the poor class. They actually set up what they call Irish ghettos in some cities because this was an area secluded just to the Irish that were people that struggled to make ends meet. But over time, a lot of the poor ended up improving their status. So that takes us to the next part that you need to do. And you will see this on Google Classroom. Middle class, I don't have anything on this slide because this is your job. So I've already put middle class in the 1800s, I believe is the Google Classroom area. You'll be looking at this document. So if you could pull this up, this comes from our previous textbook. This new textbook didn't have as great of information. So we're going here. Get it there. So I'm going to read the first paragraph for you, and then I'll turn you loose on the next few. All right. So many poor people did improve their economic status, as I just stated. Over time, they get enough money. So during the early 1800s, a new social class arose between the wealthy and the poor. This middle class included prosperous artisans. That means that they had a job or an occupation that demanded a skill, like they were a blacksmith or they were a tailor, meaning they altered clothes, or a seamstress, a person that sewed. These people would be specifically skilled in a job. Farmers were middle-class people, lawyers, ministers, shopkeepers, meaning they had a storefront, and their families are all middle class. Middle-class families lived in simple but comfortable homes with conveniences such as bathing stands and bowls, iron cook stoves, lamps, and rugs. Middle-class families had enough money to buy food, clothing, and other products made available by the market revolution. This meant that they no longer had to work together at home to produce their necessities. So that last sentence is pretty important to understand, that they're going to be able to buy their things that they need, their necessities, rather than having mom or dad, grandma and grandpa make all of these things. So I want you to read these next two paragraphs here. And what I want you to do with that is I want you to write down a couple more characteristics, especially about kids, about the expectations of men and women and their role, and the children and what their expectation was in the middle class. And then when you get that done, you'd want to write that into your notes. So we're going to go back to stopping the share. Once you get that done, then Mrs. Bergen will hand out a worksheet to you, and you should complete. It's a kind of a graphic organizer. It'll look like this. And you will be putting these bullet points into down here. There are two that you use twice. Okay, there are two of them that you use twice. So I'll start with the first one. It says children did not have to attend school. Well, that'll be wealthy. I'm sorry. Children did not have to work. I'll repeat. Children did not have to work is what it says. Wealthy children did not have to work, nor did the middle class kids have to work. Okay, so that goes into both of those. And then there's only one other one that goes into both, and that is children went to school. It goes into two parts. Otherwise, every other one is used once in these bullet points. All right, hopefully that gives you enough direction. You should have that filled out for tomorrow in class. Hope you guys have a good day. Thank you very much.